This is the only thing we see now. I think it's better, you know, you can use time for this. And ask me for what
That's good morning, sir. Your panelist, sir. Chair. Chair. Yeah. Good morning. Yeah, I'll send it over. Yes. Yes. So is this the file? So that's called to. Sorry, not that. BD, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
No, is that of you of guys? That's what. Yes.
Yeah, I'm coming. I need to find out. Says there's a problem with the drive. There might be a problem with some files on this device or this.
You can let me go and bring it up.
Okay, you send it to via email. Oh, let me see. It's saying on the
Wọ́n kéré jù nọ́mbà wa wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be that. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. Namukwa, Osinachi. One man, Osinachi. I'm watching. Daily, Osinachi. Mama, Osinachi.
Looking for where to come to I'm not going to leave in Germany. Before I quit, when look for answers, really answers. So I applied and I got the job. So, already.
Yes,
Can we start?
yes, of course.
Okay. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Olumide from Africa University. I have the honor to chair this called session. I would like to know if Femi Adedino is there with us. Okay, is Femi Adedino online?
No.
Okay. Adewale Ademuyiwa, is Ademuyiwa here with us? Is Adewale
No.
online? Okay. There is also Imomotimi Armstrong.
Online.
I guess it's online. Then there is TGOK. Awu CFA. Is it without
No,
there?
it's not online.
It's also not online.
Yes.
Okay. So then there is Judge Olaleye. Is Judge Olaleye here with us? Oh, okay. So of all the
Oh, is the one trying? Okay, I think he went out to sort out how to send the slides.
Okay. So if we had all of them online or available, I would have suggested that we have 12 minutes for each of them.
Okay.
So that we'll have 1 hour and we have 30 minutes for questions. But since only about 2 of them are currently available, one physically and one online. And I think we'll be generous with the time. Then maybe say 20 minutes for each of them, because we don't know if some of them may come online later. So I think we should give them 20 minutes.
All right, yeah, that works.
We'd have more than enough time to rigorously engage their presentation. Okay. Armstrong. If Armstrong is available, Armstrong can start with his presentation.
Good morning, all.
Good morning,
Can you hear me?
Armstrong.
Yes, we can.
Welcome to this panel on folklore, poetry, and orality in transition. You have 20 minutes for your presentation. Then we take questions thereafter. Okay?
Okay.
All right, please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this paper. But somehow, I've not been able to develop the paper, but I'm going to. I've been able to. My paper, that's what you have there. It's no longer there. The title of the paper. I've been able to make changes to the title of the paper, and it is titled "Climate Change, Global Warming, and Praise Poetry." Now, basically, my argument today is that
I didn't get your new title. Well, can you please?
What did you say?
I didn't get the new title of your paper. Can you please?
Okay. The new title is Climate Change, Global Warming, and African Praise Poetry.
Okay.
Climate Change, Global Warming, and African Praise Poetry. That's the title of the paper now. And, the praise poetry is actually a widespread poetic practice in Africa. Many of the ethnic groups, have it as a practice. The Francophone West Africa, some of the ethnic groups in Francophone West Africa have it, the Mandi, and even in Southern Africa, the Bantu-speaking ethnic groups have it in Kosa, South Africa. The chanter is actually called Mbongi. Then in Francophone West Africa, the praise chanter is called Griot. In the Hausa ethnic group in Nigeria, poets, do in Africa. Poet does in Africa is that an advisor is regarded as a critic and as an educator. And the praise poet comments on, as many scholars have said, the praise poet comments on important matters of state. What is important to his ethnic group. He always comments on matters that are very, very important to his ethnic group. And it is a continuation of that tradition that this poet, Adolphus Monamna, composed this long poem on global warming and climate change. Now, who is Monamna, Adolphus Monamna? Adolphus Monamna is from the Ijaw of Nigeria. In fact, before this time, before the contemporary period, there was nothing like praise poetry in Ijaw society. Monamna used to live, amongst the Yoruba of Nigeria, especially in Lagos. When he was there, He was there, and he fell in love with Yoruba, praise chanting tradition, and imported it, as it were, into a Ijaw community. And for a long time, in fact, for many years, he has been going around, performing poetry for both the nobility and the masses. He has got a lot of poems. Some of the topics or some of the subjects include, HIV/AIDS and the apathy the Ijaw have towards their language, the Ijaw language. And the Ijaw live in the Niger Delta of Nigeria, and this issue of environmental pollution is there. He has a lot of poems on environmental pollution environmental pollution too. So he has been going around chanting, performing poetry for people and all of that. And since the praise poet comments on matters that are important, he has been doing that too. Anything that he sees that is important to the Ijaw community, he will perform a poetry on it. For example, the massacre in the Niger Delta, the OT, where the Nigerian army caused a massacre some years ago, and when the town won a court case against the Nigerian government, Munamuna, Chief Adolphus Munamuna, who calls himself the Albi Kenny of Ijaw land, that is the chief oral praise poet of Ijaw land, performed a poet and performed one fine poem in honor of that occasion. And this poem, it's about the flood that happened. It was because of the flood that he composed. The flood that happened or devastated Nigeria in 2012, the 2012 flood. And the poem is basically concerned with how flood devastated is the Ijaw territory. And in the beginning, he's trying to say that, flood is a good thing, as it were. That, during the flood, that is when during the flood, the Ijaw man, will have lots of fish and all that. There are a lot of things, a lot of good things and all of that. In fact, the Ijaw people, have always looked forward to the coming of flood water from August to October. They always look forward to this thing because it is a time where they will have the lobsters and all of that. But the true flood came and changed a lot of things. Devastated Ijaw territory, and it's like that. The flood, it's caused by, or this constant flood is caused by climate change. That's his argument. His argument is that flood has always been coming, but not this level, not as big as the one of 2012. And the 2012 came and scattered people as it were. So he was like, no, this one is caused by some people somewhere. In fact, he's trying to accuse the Westerners that they are the cause of this flood. And 212, 218, 219, 222, very big floods, in Nigeria. And he's trying to say that, this thing is caused by the Westerners. It's because of the Westerners trying to, it's because of their industrialization, as it were. It's because of their companies. In fact, people say it's because of the activities of Boeing and some of the companies in the US and in Europe, it's because of the activities that the flood, the volume of the flood is this big. That's what he's trying to say. And in poem, he's trying to look at the effects of this flood on people. Even the fish too, according to him, even the fish too are affected by, in fact, they too are affected by this flood, even the birds too. And the effects on humanity, on humans. And in fact, he's trying to say that even the former president of Nigeria, his house in his country home, in fact, it was heavily flooded. Almost, according to him, press poets exaggerate a lot. And he's trying to say that almost every house was flooded in the Niger Delta. And then became refugees, as it were. And after flood, he went into the global. Hello?
Yes, I need to tell you that.
Did you get that?
Hello?
I mean, Franco, did you say something?
Yes, you have 5 minutes more because of our time. We have another presenter that joined us, so we need to adjust the time.
Okay, that's okay. And in terms of even global warming, he's trying to say that the clashes in the north central part of Nigeria, especially Plateau State and Benue State. In fact, the other day, we understand that some 200 persons died in Benue State. And he's trying to say that these deaths are caused by global warming, in the sense that he's saying that, these days, there is nowhere for the flock, for the Fulani cows, nowhere for them to feed from. That is why, because of the fact that global warming has caused hot temperatures and all of that. So because of that, they are coming down to these parts of Nigeria, to the Niger Delta and other areas, in search of water, in search of plants and all of that. And it's because of all these things that you have this fight between indigenous and non-indigenous, as it were. Because of hotter temperatures, people no longer, live in their places. They are running down to places where they think there's water and where they think everything is okay and all of that. That's why, he's saying that Nigeria has all of these issues and all of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Armstrong. Imomotimi, I hope I got that right, from Niger Delta University in Bayelsa, for your presentation on critical intersections between global warming, climate change, and African post-poetry. I know that the audience have questions for you. I also have my own questions for you. But in the interim, we have to go to other presenters and take all the questions together. Then the presenters can respond one after the other. Ms. Adewale, George Olale, ready? Yes, please, George Olale. You have the floor to give us your presentation on the systemic functional study of selected Yoruba proverbs. Thank you very much.
Hello, I didn't hear you because of network.
Oh, sorry about that. I said that after all the presenters are done with their presentations, then we'll take the questions and you respond one after the other.
That's okay.
Right, that's fine.
Thank you so much. The chairman.
You have 15 minutes, please.
The chairman and other presenter. It is a privilege to present a paper on a pragmatic systemic functional study of selected Yoruba proverbs on ethical conduct and
Yes.
and behavior. This particular paper,
So I'll give you 10 minutes because we have two other presenters now.
right, so
I'll give you 10 minutes.
So this paper is coming on the heels of the decades that has characterized the entire occasion by urbanization. And the urban environment is not an exception. So for this very work, the theoretical frameworks that have been chosen are pragmatics and systemic functional grammar, also called systemic functional linguistics. So when we talk about pragmatics, it has to do with contrastes with invisible meaning. Contrastes with invisible meaning. That is, in a situation, is something pragmatic has to do with understanding or saying more than what is actually said. And subsumed in the pragmatics is the speech acts theory propounded by Austin in 1962, telling us how to do things with words. And he proposed the speech act theory comprising three parts: the locutionary, and the translocutionary. The locutionary actually means what is said, that is a piece of utterance. Then the locutionary means performing something through what is said. And then the locutionary means the effects of what is said on the hearer. So that briefly sums up the speech act theory as proponed by Austin. Then the second theory is the systemic functional grammar, or also called systemic functional linguistics, propounded by Halliday. This theory has been used by many scholars. So it is one of the schools of grammar that has gained traction over the years. And on systemic functional grammar or systemic functional linguistics, there is what we call the meta function. You have the ideation, the textual, the interpersonal, and the textual, the interpersonal, and we have the textual, the interpersonal. I forgot. So the process of the textual means the very time, the very stage when a text is created. That is textual. Then the interpersonal means what we do when we make utterances or when text or this thing are written. So then we have the ideational. The ideational means, I've said three meta functions: the ideational, the textual, and the interpersonal. So the ideational means that the very point or stage where an idea is born.
We have 5 minutes more.
Okay.
Can you give us the data? Let's see.
Okay, the data, on the data, what I've done is to select purposively.
Yeah, let's see those scoopers.
30, so they are there on the, so touching some vital areas of the human life, mention that is on self-restraint and caution, hard work, patience, among others. So 4 proverbs were chosen for each of them, explaining the that is the locutionary and the perlocutionary. And then talking about the context, mention is made of the linguistic, the psychological, the social, the sociological, then the cosmological. So all of them were, so as a means of explaining there is what we call datum, identifying each of the proverbs and their translation. So that in summary is what this paper is all about. Then the paper concludes that proverb is as an appendage of language is what people should give attention to, that because it's an extension of the culture. So when we embrace a proverb, when we take the ins and outs of proverb, we'll be able to live a life that is purposeful and deviate from the decadence that has characterized the human world and by extension the Yoruba society or environment. That's what the paper is all about.
I saw on your slide that you have a Yoruba proverb that says that, because I have a couple of words on proverbs, that says that can you please?
Okay, that one is talking about honesty. When you say you see something, you have already told people that you have seen something, and thereafter you say you have not seen the thing again. It amounts to hypocrisy. So when you talk about the psychological aspect of it, is that a person who has said something or who has said something that this is what it is will be depressed. You hear that the speaker has changed the position again. And when you also talk about the social context means that people will not want to identify with someone who is not straightforward or who is not stable. And when you talk about the sociological context, it means people, the society, environment abhors hypocrisy. And then when in the cosmological context, in the world in which we live, people do not hold hypocrisy in high esteem. So because in the cosmological, it's all about the speaker's worldview and the perception of the variables that are within his environment. So that is
Thank you very much, George Olaleye, for that presentation on a systemic functional study of selected Yoruba proverbs. Thank you. You can have your seat. Then when we have the questions, the audience will asking questions or making to intervention on your work. Thank you very much. I think someone is available. I think Chijioke, if I'm correct.
Chijioke, yes. Chijioke is here. Chijioke is available.
You have Chijioke is the only one left, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Chijioke, I think we can manage to give you 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's Chijioke. Sorry, I can't be with you live in person. I was actually at Unilag yesterday. I attended in person, but an emergency forced me back to Port Harcourt this morning. Landed at the airport. I'm still on the way. I haven't reached my my place yet, but I had to stop to make.
It's not on.
It's
It's coming. I think it's
coming.
That. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We couldn't hear you before.
Okay. So adaptation informs some of Nollywood's classics, like Saworide, produced in 1999, as well as Thunderbolt, produced in 2001. These two films are adapted respectively from Akinwumi Shola's work with the same title, and Adebayo Faleti's The Whore, The Thunderbolt 8, published in 1998. So in recent times, movie adaptations from novels have been on the rise in Nollywood, with films like The Man Died, released in 2024, I Do Not Come to You by Chance, produced in 2023, Eleshoba, The King's Horseman, released in 2022, and Half of a Yellow Sun, released in 2012. These films are adapted in that order from Wole Soyinka's 1972 prison memoir of the same name, Adobe Tricia Mubani's 2009 novel with the same title, Wole Soyinka's 1965 play The King and the Horseman, and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's 2008 novel with the same title. So the adaptations basically, in most cases, follow the names of the literary work that they adapt. So Nollywood adaptations, no doubt, go beyond these films that we mentioned above. Okay, the list of Nollywood adaptations go back to the industry's first decade in the 1990s and continues through the present. In 2023, for instance, we hear Netflix make an announcement that in collaboration with a Nigerian filmmaker Akeno Motosho and South African production house Oka Moving Pictures, that they're going to produce some multiple book to film and television adaptations that include Helen Habila's Waiting for an Angel and Wole Soyinka's Ibadan, The Years of Panclemes. But then, even with this recent, so to say, bug that has caught Nollywood with adaptation, literature to film adaptation in Nollywood is not a new phenomenon within the Nigerian cinema history. The first full-length feature film experiences in Nigeria were all adaptations, okay? And these included Kongi's Harvest, which is a 1970 adaptation of Wole Soyinka's play by the same title. Things Fall Apart, also called Bullfrog's Son, which is adapted in 1971 from two novels, Things Fall Apart and No Longer At Ease. And then we also have Shehu Umar's Shehu Umar, adapted from adapted birth Nigerian cinema from the beginning, because these films that I just mentioned, Kongi's Harvest, you know, within Nigeria, an existing literary work, adaptation in the sense of the of evolution, in particular engages in its attempts to figure out how to adjust to post-colonial world that is still heavily informed and influenced by traditional worldviews. So in that case, this paper uses critical discourse analysis to explore Nollywood's adaptations and the centrality of orality and folklore therein. It focuses on the 2009 Nollywood film, The Figurine, Aroromire, directed by Kunle Afolayan, to illustrate its position, and then draws from adaptations in the context of African cinema to buttress its point. The paper argues that in rooting its storytelling in folklore that illustrates the ability of Nollywood to adapt contemporary cultural realities that are steeped in belief in the supernatural and the fantastic, Aroromire demonstrates how Nollywood's adaptations primarily derive from oral traditions. Through adaptation, the paper contends Nollywood continues to deconstruct oral traditions and then reconstructs them into decentered frames for viewing and living in post-colonial Africa with all the inherent tensions between modernity and traditional religious worldviews. For want of time, let me go to Nollywood adaptations in the context of African cinema. African films emerged from adapting oral narratives. So in the case of Nollywood, or in the case of cinema in Nigeria, we started from adapting literary work, but African cinema generally emerged from, well, let's say sub-Saharan African film, to be more particular, emerged from adapting our oral narratives. The first short film by an African, Muramani, which was released in 1953, a 23-minute production by Guinan Toure, an adaptation of African oral story, which is an allegorical critique of male dominance. Steeped in orality, African traditional cultures formulate and formalize their imaginaries in myths. Then, drawing from the oral tales and epic poem narrative tradition, the griot, the traveling minstrels, and all of those, and all of this privileged oral context, the storytelling technique within the African cultures embody a symbiotic relationship among the text, the artist, and the spectator. Through such an interaction, African cinemas interpret a worldview that is rooted in history, but also engaged with the present. The Sankofa bird in the Akan mythology best symbolizes this engagement, and as Andred Watkins puts it, just as the Sankofa bird flies ahead while looking to the past, African cinema marches backward into the future. Now, that's a great play on words, but we're not going to, pass it, untie that. Just for us to say that Nollywood, which is the cinema of Nigeria, now forms part of this general African cinema that is rooted in traditional African storytelling strategies. It deploys a free range of the imaginative in framing cultural fascination with creative narratives. These narratives are tales of the bizarre, the horrific, and the otherworldly in the religious imaginaries of contemporary African societies through such films that Nollywood, for instance, categorizes as epics. Accordingly, Nollywood's adaptations predominantly explore folklore, myths, and legends, particularly as these relate to the representations of the fantastic and the binaries of good and evil, sacred and secular, as well as the wars that rage between the agents of these two realms. Now, folklore, for instance, plumbs a universe of elemental forces accessible through a pantheon of deities. It recounts a primal social order that emerged from the interplay of the deities and the human progenitors. So now, bridging a ruptured memory, folklore profiles explanations for the continued struggles between the forces that war against each other to establish balance and exercise control. Again, I will have to move forward, looking at time, to come to now Ara Romire, the film. It helps to explore, interrogate, and buttress the argument of this paper that orality, oral content becomes a text for Nollywood when it comes to adaptation. So the film, figurine Ara Romire, excuse me, which was released in 2009, is the story of a contemporary encounter goddess that bestows in a 7-year cycle good fortune and then ill fortune on her worshippers. According to the director of the film, Kula Folayan, Ara Romire feeds on the superstition of the African to tell a story of the competition between, quote, human and the supernatural. Although it is, yes, I have 5 minutes, right? Yes, I have 5 minutes. Sure, I'll be done in 5 minutes. Thank you. So, although it is a work of fiction, Ara Romire, the film, is informed primarily by Yoruba mythology that tells of a universe of elemental forces, both natural and social. Film equally borrows from other cultural and religious influences, like the biblical account of the dream of Pharaoh, interpreted by Joseph, 7 years of abundance and 7 years of scarcity. But more proximately, Ara Romire draws inspiration from Wole Soyinka's works, especially Death and the King's Horsemen, which is a tragic play that grapples with the relationship between the living and the dead, following a ritual suicide traditionally demanded of our local chief's horsemen. But Soyinka obviously transcends the concerns with metaphysics of cosmologists and all of those, and that is where Afolayan draws. So Afolayan imitates Wole Soyinka on that front by visualizing Ara Romire through a narrative that his audience would identify with from their context. So given that the presence of the supernatural distinguishes the Nollywood imagination, Afolayan engages oral storytelling techniques to create a visual description of religious and sociocultural African history as witnessed through the virtues of the deity. So the central Yoruba tradition from which Afolayan draws, that of the sacred myth describing the creation, evolution, and jurisdiction of the deities and historical heroes, illustrates an extraordinary, rigorous, as well as intelligent, coherent, elegant cosmology. And that's a point worth making, that because this is oral, because this goes to myth, this goes to legend, it does not mean that it's unplanned, it does not mean that it lacks intelligence. So the myth and the folklore that articulate this cosmology embody a sophisticated worldview that upholds as its core value, the balancing and harmonizing of powerful forces, natural, numinous, and social, is worth, like I said, keeping in mind. So, keeping all of that in mind, let me just come to a conclusion to say that the foregoing discussion here of this paper demonstrates how Nollywood adapts contemporary cultural realities that are steeped in the belief in the supernatural and the fantastic. The depth of those realities is often plumbed through folklore and legend. But given that cinema is dependent on reality, Nollywood attains its fullness by being the fullness of this adaptation from orality, by being the art of the real, okay, drawing from the real. However, because brute reality underlines cinematic appeal, Nollywood has often been accused of being fixated on superstition, occult horror, or primitive rituals. But again, like I keep emphasizing, the portrayals that Nollywood makes are uniquely African, for it is in plumbing its cultural imaginaries that Nollywood makes sense of the contemporary realities of its audience. The being of Ara Romire owes something to the tale that was its inspiration. It is in bringing Ara Romire to the fore that Nollywood buttresses or re-emphasizes the point that oral content constitute text for Nollywood And in exploring those texts, we explore the culture of the present while we look at how Africa and Africans adapt to that history within the contemporary times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chijioke, Awusife, from the Catholic Institute.
As well, yeah.
From the Catholic Institute of West Africa. I thought there was
yes,
online before we're going to create time to accommodate him and give him 10 minutes to do his presentation. But unfortunately, I think we lost him there. Maybe it's the network problem from Sam. We'll try and see how we can bring him into the picture when if he's able to return to us. But now we want to take questions from the audience or suggestion or intervention in the work. So I want to give the audience the opportunity to ask the presenters question about the work. Please, Mr. George, yes. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, I have two questions from these two presenters.
Okay. Chijioke and George.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me start with Mr. George. You made mention of speech act theory. There are the theories you use to analyze your programs. And also SFL, that is systemic functional linguistics. So in the speech act, we saw that there is an act where it mentions the locutionary and locution open locution. It depends on the analysis. So my question goes like this. SFL, sorry, I saw context, social, and sociological. Since the tenets of SFL are the textual, additional, and interpersonal, how can we be able to identify that this is ideational, textual, or interpersonal among the analysis?
Okay, thank you very much. What I've done.
Does anybody, you have another question? Maybe you just take your question, then.
I think it would be better if you had bring us some of the programs.
Yeah, that was why I told you to go
to okay, answering
that question. Yes.
You want to go back to slide? I think Mr. Chair, you have to give him about 2 minutes to give.
I think we need to do that. Yeah. Maybe you could project his paper so that we can.
Questions.
Do you have another question for me? Chijioke and Armstrong, let's just take his own questions and come back to you. Okay, if you have a question, yes, please go ahead.
My question is, how did
okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. Thank you.
You are finding this.
Okay, thank you very much.
So you could just give us 2 or 3 of the proverbs, or maybe 1 or 2, just use them to like no. Yeah, the data.
The first one.
Okay,
do you want to do the first one?
Just the first one. For because there are 8 areas that I discussed: hard work, patient perseverance, reference with caution, among others. So what I've just done is, let me just first of all answer the question. When we talk about speech act, as I told you, we talk about 3 areas or aspects. That is the locutionary. That is what an utterance is. The locutionary. That is what is what is expected to be done through an utterance. Then the perlocutionary, that's the effect of what is said on the hearer, possibly maybe asking the hearer to do some things. So the belief is that in most cases, all utterances are illocutionary, with the pragmaticians also all the pragmatic force, that when we say something, more often than not, in most cases, we expect possibly the hearer to do something. And so that also aligns with what, because I said specifically in the discussion of the theoretical framework that for this in this very context, the interpersonal, that's one of the strands of the SFL or SFG, that is systemic functional, will like also coincide with the illocutionary, because they all deal with getting something done through an utterance or utterances. That is the interpersonal, which, I said textual, interpersonal, and additional. Additional means when an idea is born. I need to write, an idea comes up within me. So, and that is what prompted my piece of writing. Then the creation of the text is what is the textual. Then the interpersonal means doing something or what the text tells someone to do. I hope you understand the meta functions now. Now on the this thing, and it also aligns with the illocutionary, that is getting something done. Then the effect of what is done is the perlocutionary. Then pragmatists also believe in context, that it's not just only enough to say something. There must be situations or circumstances that will warrant it, so that the hearer, the speaker and the hearer have a common ground on what they are discussing. So context is very important in pragmatics, and SFL too, SFG also believes in context. But in the SFL, I made reference to 6 content, but not all of them were used, and they were used in that as they apply to the list. We have the linguistic, we have the linguistic, the situational, the sociological, the cosmological. So 6 of them. So that we apply them based on what they, for example, let's look at perseverance to endurance based on one. So I got the data from a collection of proverbs by Omo 2005. It's a collection of that is where I got the vision. So the translation was not the problem, because he had already made the translation in the so I sought the proverbs and their translation from that very collection of proverbs. So let's look at it from one now. So translation, he who will partake of honey in the rock does not mind the edge of the axe. So please, so the locutionary, it is assertive and advisory. So it is a fact, it is stating something that should be done. And it's also warning someone who is in the process of doing something to endure. So because he that, so now let's look at the content, the linguistic. The proverb comprises 3 lexims, words: rock, axe, and honey. So rock is akpata in Yoruba, axe, ake, and then honey, which is oni. So they are all symbolic. Then the cycle, there is a feeling of satisfaction whenever obstacles have been overcome. Then sociological, the society approves of people who persevere in their endeavors to attain success. Then the cosmological, mountain represents obstacle, axe is a tool for clearing that solution, honey, outstanding results. So the cause of the matter is that if all these are put into implementation, that because proverb shows the life experience of a group of people, if they actually put into operation, so it will at least to some extent reduce the decadence or the decrease that we experience in the behavior, proper behavior of human beings, especially in the Yoruba society. So I don't know if you're...
Yes. Do you still have a question for me? Okay, it's clear now. Any other question for Church? Okay, since there's no question for you, you can have your seat. Thank you very much. Can we go back to... Yes. Any question? You said you have a question for Chijioke. Yes.
Yes.
Chijioke, are you with us? Okay, all right. I can see you now.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Are you with me?
Thank you. Yes, I hear you.
Yes,
go ahead, please.
You made mention of your theoretical framework as critical discourse analysis.
Right.
Yes, and your title, the title of your work is on orality, folklore, and Nollywood adaptations.
Mhm.
So in the course of your presentation, sir, I didn't see anywhere that you aligned your framework with the data that you presented. So I want clearance, sir. I need more clarifications.
Okay, thank you very much. In what sense? When you said I didn't align the
Your data with your framework. In the course of your presentation, you said more on the data without aligning it with the framework, sir, because you made mention of critical discourse analysis. And I can't find anything that aligns with that, so I need clarifications. I want to learn more.
Discourse analysis.
Yes, that was what. No, he mentioned critical discourse analysis, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, Chijoke, you have to bridge the gap between your data and your theoretical framework. That's what the question is all about. She wants clarification on that. And then we lost him.
Yes.
Okay. Since we, I think, should we take questions for Armstrong before we take the presenter that's now available online? Mr. Adewale, Ademuyiwa, are you with us? Adewale Ademuyiwa, I think he's muted, right?
He can unmute himself.
Yes, he has to do that himself, right?
Yeah, he can, yes.
Adewale Ademuyiwa, then we send him a message.
I've asked him to unmute. Okay, it is.
Adewale Ademuyiwa.
Right, I'm back. My network disappeared, please. Chijoke is back, please. My network disappeared.
We'll get back to you. Let's allow Chijoke to answer the question that was posed to him. Chijoke, now you have the floor, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I was asking for clarification. So the person who posed the question, she said she didn't hear me align my
theoretical framework,
critical discourse analysis framework with the contents. Yeah, I wanted to understand what the question was, please. Could you elaborate? I didn't get that. Like, by aligning, what do you mean by that? So that I know what I'm responding to, please.
Say that if you don't apply, you didn't seek to apply that theory to your analysis.
Like that, I didn't do what?
You didn't align the theory with your analysis.
And I'm trying, critical discourse analysis is actually not a theory, it's a framework. It's a way of exploring. And the analysis was, the rest of the paper was analyzing how Araromire illustrates that orality within the Nollywood context provides text. The text for reading African past, but also the text for contextualizing Africa within the post.
It's not so bad.
Critical and see what it says beyond the text. And in the context of Nollywood, I was looking at, among other things, some of the films like the presentation said that Nollywood categorizes as epic, but drawing from particularly Kunle Afolayan's Araromire to demonstrate that. Okay. Now, adaptation is basically is film adaptation is to go from text, literary text, and then producing them into television or cinema. But then in this context, I said it goes beyond that to look at how Nollywood engages the discussion of evolving, the everydayness. Actually, what makes Nollywood is the everydayness of the context that Nollywood incorporates and if you may, represents. through images, like gives this everydayness images and then audio in order to make them practical, in order to make them come alive in the life of the people. So, and that's basically what this presentation rather says. So, like you said, the critical discourse, the paper itself is anchored. The full paper itself is anchored on the meta theories that draw from film critic and theorist Andre Bazin, Eisenstein, and Krakow. Okay, so on the meta theories of those three, that the full paper is engaged. But because of time, I decided not to go into that, but just to focus on the critical discourse analysis of that, and on the basis of those the argument of the meta theory flowing from those three. We looked at films like October actually, which was produced in 1912, talking illustrating the revolution in popular revolution in Russia, and how that informed how adaptations looked at in film and in film theory and in film discourses. So, direct to the question that you asked, if I understood your question, basically, critical discourse analysis is a framework for looking at texts, okay, bringing much more than the text to bear cultural influences that include power or gender or literary analysis to bear on the particular text that one is analyzing, but just that the theories that inform that, actually the meta theories of Andre Bazin, Sergei Eisenstein, and Jean-Luc Godard. Those are actually the three theories that I drew from to do the work. But like I said again, I didn't go into them because I was short of time. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Chidoke. I have a question for you, or in a sort of intervention, and I'll make it as brief as possible. My argument is that.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, we cannot make the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, the ones that are coming after them, have the interest or gather them around the fireplace and tell them folklore stories the way our own fathers and grandfathers used to us. And the ways that we need to bring them to the culture, take the culture to them, is to push it through new media, the platforms that this generation are quite familiar with. I don't know whether your recommendation, by any chance, goes to say that these adaptations are ways to. They are becoming quite popular. You mentioned some of them. There are ways that they are now becoming ways by which you must take the culture to this generation, or take them to the culture. That's just my own intervention. I don't know if I did something like that.
No, thank you.
Hello?
So the culture is actually what the adaptation does, right? The adaptation of oral content, because sure, like you said, you rightly said, we might not sit the Gen Zs and the millennials down and start telling them the folklore stories. But then when those folklores are adapted into cinemas, it becomes a matter of interest for them, right? And then we know that these films, Nollywood films now, are accessible through new media, YouTube, streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon, right? So you Netflix and you chill on Netflix, kind of, okay? So the adaptation actually responds to that question and the concern that you rightly brought up, okay? Araromire, for instance, I wouldn't have known about, I'm not saying that I'm a Gen Z, but just to say that I wouldn't have known about the legend of Araromire if Kula Afolayan had not adapted it to cinema, right? And then with that adaptation now, the story continues. Wole Soyinka's the Eleshoba, all right, it was a play, you know, he wrote decades ago, but then this adaptation into film brings it to the limelight again for the younger people who, if they watch it and they're curious enough, they could research to know more about that. So I think adaptation is actually one good way of bringing what you may say elements of the culture that are deep-seated in the past because they are now folklore and all of those. But like I said, being myth, being folklore does not deny the story, the narrative, its sophistication, right? It does not deny its brilliance because it's meant to teach, it's meant to moralize. Those who craft them in such a way that there is logic to it, so that anyone who is asking questions could ask questions, but understanding that they are called to suspend disbelief in order for the meaningless of that narrative to come alive for them. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chidobi. I know that he has a comment for you. Just a comment. I would like for you to consider the title. I think your title is too broad. Using orality and Nollywood adaptation. It's a big board. Look at the scope. They also don't know why you use orality and folklore together. You can do it with orality. Folklore is the message that you have to get through the medium which orality is. So you can consider deleting orality, use folklore, use Nollywood adaptation, but also reduce your scope. I don't know whether it's the body of the work, but you can think about it. Thank you very much for that intervention.
You said you don't know it's the body of what? Sorry. You said you don't know it's the body of what? Sorry.
The body of the wall. Since you don't have access to the wall, but you might want to think about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I thank your intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was going to seek for the indulgence of Mr. Armstrong. So that I will take Adewale Ademuyiwa. Mr. Armstrong is offline now. So Mr. Adewale Ademuyiwa, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Then we can ask you questions, and then Mr. Armstrong too can have his day with the jury. Yes, can you unmute?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. You have 10 minutes. You almost put spanner in our whatever because you didn't join us. I think that's the network, but now you have 10 minutes.
Yes. Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you, and you have 10 minutes.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I said, can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you, Mr. Adewale.
Hello? Okay. So my laptop is not working here, so it will not possible for me to display the
just speak to your paper.
Although
you are allowed to speak to your paper, please.
Thank you. Oriki, the title of the Oriki they used to appraise certain community. Oriki is a linear poetry that links the Yoruba people to their origins and appraises both positive and negative archetypes of their community. It preserves the lineage thought and belief, occupations, language, symbols, and other archetypal elements. Dance appraisal poetry within Yoruba parlance Oriki is a genre of Oriki designed to encode all archetypes and cultural affinities of Yoruba towns and villages. Whether long or short, most Yoruba towns and villages have Oriki. However, globalization has led some folks to reject certain appraisal units as form of their identity in their Oriki, and this has caused a refining and discontinuity of just appraisal unit. Substitution of nearly opposite phraseology related to their identities. This paper investigates the context of refining and discontinuities in some Yoruba towns appraisal poetry with a view to examining their initial archetypal relevance, the accuracy of the substitution, and the rationale behind the changes. Introduction. The evolution of civilization often brings about shift in societal values and norms, leading to re-evaluations of some archetypal identities and communal appraisal poetry. As communities adapt to change cultural landscape, some are opting to abandon or modify their traditional names due to perceived incongruities of scientificities. This phenomenon raises important questions about the balance between cultural progress and the preservation of communal lineage heritage. Methodology. The Oriki of purposely selected Yoruba towns from southwestern part of Nigeria will be analyzed with the special focus on the endangered appraisal unit extracted from them. The data will be analyzed within the theoretical framework of archetypal hermeneutics and postmodernism. Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
I hear you now. Mr. Diwali, can you hear us?
Hello?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Oh, it's off.
I think his network is quite fair or stable where it is. So let's have questions for Mr. Armstrong, Imomo TV. Mr. Armstrong, Imomo TV, are you with us?
Hello, I'm with you.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Everybody is back. I wanted us to take questions for you, but Mr. Adewale is back, so let's just have him for the next 5 minutes. Mr. Adewale, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Mr. Adewale. Okay, Adewale, please go ahead and then can you just please move on to your analysis or data?
Okay, let me give some sample of data analysis. Let me just give some sample of data analysis.
Good.
Yes, from Oriki Secretary. Secretary is a community in Inoki-Ogun, Oyo North Senatorial District. There's a appraisal unit that says Secretary Ilu Odaju níbi ìyá àròkà tí kò bùn ọmọ jẹ. Secretary a massless town where mother prepared oka, a kind of Yoruba meal, and did not give her child. The appraisal unit has been replaced with Secretary Ilu Anu, Secretary a massive town níbi ìyá àròkà where mother prepared oka tó sì bùn ọmọ jẹ and give her child. Another one from appraisal pressure of Ibadan. Ibadan Gbole, Ogbole, Ogba Oniro, Ogba Arenije. Ibadan accommodates thieves and lazy person. It accommodates and the cheaters. It's now being changed to Ibadan. Ibadan Kole, Okole, Oko Oniro, Oka Arenije. Ibadan rejects thieves and lazy person. It rejects liar and the cheaters. Also from Oriki Iseyin. Also from Oriki Iseyin. Excuse me. Iseyin ìlú Ẹ̀yọ̀ Kìkì Ẹ̀gàn níbi ojúbú ni tí ó ju ẹnu lọ, which has been changed to Iseyin ìlú Ẹ̀yọ̀ Kìkì Àpọ́nlé níbi tí ojú pọ́nilé tó ju ẹnu lọ. What I'm trying to say is that community are trying to remodify, to reevaluate some archetypal elements in their knowledge appraisal poetry, and which is now is a way of eradicating some archetypal elements known with the community. So the phenomenon of communal appraisal changes reflect the complex and dynamic nature of cultural evolution and identity formation. As community navigate the tensions between honoring historical legacy and embracing contemporary values, they must also balance the need for cultural progress with the preservation of communal lineage heritage. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think I'm done. So, because of
Mr. Mr. Duale, thank you very much for your presentation. Please just stay with us so that you can have questions and some interventions from the panel. Armstrong Imomotini, yes,
Hello.
yes, good to have you once again. I think it's time for the audience to ask questions and then to maybe make some interventions in your work. Members of the audience, any question for him? Yes, there's a question for you from him or a comment.
All right, Imam Timmy, thank you for your presentation. Even though we don't have the paper, but listening to your presentation, I see you discussing climate change, where I actually can't place praise poetry in your presentation. I wasn't able to see praise poetry come to fore in your discussion. I see you discuss climate change extensively, but praise poetry for me was missing. So I don't know whether you have it in your paper, but from your presentation, I didn't see praise poetry.
I'm just to portray that, yes.
Yeah, I'm just also asked what they said, even though I wasn't there for the presentation. I was actually fascinated by the African praise poetry. And if you're talking about African, I really want to know where you saw this praise poetry from, because Africa itself is the general sense.
Yeah.
So yes, which part of Africa you saw your praise poetry from?
To add to that, I have that question in mind. When you were doing your presentation, I could not see any reference to this praise poetry. So you focus more on the environmental challenges that we have in the Niger Delta environment, which is a very, very popular trope in Niger Delta literature, understandably. But I didn't see the African praise poetry reflected in that presentation. Also, I don't know, I didn't hear you talk about your theory. Whether you talked about it, I missed it, I don't know. But I don't know whether it's, I think it will maybe echo criticism or whatever. I didn't hear that. So I would like to hear more from you on that. Also, then your topic, I don't know. I want to suggest that your topic, you can just do away with global warming, because I believe that global warming itself is subsumed in climate change. So I don't think you should just, I think you should just expunge global warming. And I would suggest that you just use for a particular reason, because of the environment and the topic, that instead of using moving with the times, I would say you should use moving with the tides. Okay? Instead of times, use tides. Okay? That's my suggestion to you. And then you should just move global warming and let climate change remain. So can you please say what the African praise poetry? Let me use that for yes. Let's hear it. Well, we don't know whether he wants to take on Africa, whether he doesn't want to limit it to Nigeria. So let's hear it about the African part of praise poetry. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you for your questions. Unfortunately, I didn't get the second question. The question asked by the lady. I didn't hear a question, please. Could you take that again, please, ask a question? I got yours and the first one, but the second question, I didn't get it, please.
Okay, my question was just what the speaker asked, that you are talking about African praise poetry. The word African itself is quite general, so it's a broad term. Which praise poetry from which parts of Africa, which countries in particular, are you drawing your praise poetry from?
Okay, thank you for all your questions. And straight to the second question. Now, it's actually the Ijaw praise poetry. Praise poetry, praise poetry that was imported from the Yoruba to Ijaw community, and up till now, it's only one person, who chants this poetry in the Ijaw community. So it's basically Ijaw praise poetry. Then to the other question about theory and all of that, there's no theory. There's no theory. You know, I'm not using any theory. I'm just trying to say that African praise poets are still relevant. They're still relevant. You know, these days people talk every time about global warming, climate change, global warming, climate change, and some persons are trying to say that the African praise poet is incapable of climate change or global warming. That is why I'm trying to make this argument that the praise poet is still relevant in Africa, is still relevant, that is still capable of globalization, capable of climate change and all of that. That he still has, the African praise poet still has a role to play in contemporary times by giving this example. This is a poem on climate change. Then the poem is actually more, in fact, it is even more than 700 words. More than 700 words of one particular poet. And the thing is, you know, I wouldn't be able to limiting the scope to the Niger Delta. You know, that wouldn't be okay because, you know, it actually affects, you know, a lot of countries in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. You know, when flood comes, it doesn't only affect Nigeria, it affects some other countries in Africa. And he's trying to talk about, you know, how it affects country in Africa. Although he's trying to take some examples from the Niger Delta, from his community, the Ijaw community. But he's talking about what happens in Plateau State, what happens in Benue State, and what happens in other countries, some other countries in Africa. That is why you have something like, that's why the title is African Praise Poetry and not Niger Delta Praise Poetry. If you said Niger Delta Poetry, you know, you are like limiting it to the Niger Delta area or to the Ijaw community. But this is something that affects a lot of countries in Africa. So bringing Africa and not Niger Delta or Ijaw will capture the whole thing. That is why it is there. And in terms of not dwelling on the line.
Okay, Mr. Armstrong, I think there are quite a number of responses to what you just said. I have my own response, and I know all of us here, we are class, some of us are learning, and then I want to allow the audience to respond to you. Yes.
All right, Sachi, okay, thank you for
Mr. Armstrong.
Okay, Mr. Armstrong, okay. Thank you for your presentation. But I would like to say that for you to sound scholarly, you may have to use a theory. Otherwise,
you may.
Okay, then. And you should use the theory. Otherwise, you end up telling us stories like any other person would do. And that's one. The other part of it, like you said, you cannot say Niger Delta. You do not want to limit it to Niger Delta in your title, but you limited it yourself in the analysis, in your own data. Okay, so please, first of all, I'd like you to eliminate the thought that you are not using data, you are not using a theory. You have to use a theory because you end up telling us facts that anybody can see. But if you use theory, you will try your analysis and then you will sharpen your when you discuss your data.
Okay, actually, the reason why it is called theoretical framework, and that's why you have to. You can't shy away from the theory. There's no way you're going to shy away. We allow you to see. I just want the audience to finish their intervention. Yes.
What's your field of study? Maybe if you know your field of study, what's your field of study?
It is the field of study African oral literature. That's my field of study, African oral literature.
Well, I disagree with you. I think a lot of people here disagree with you on the position that you don't need a theory or you may not use a theory. It's not advising. Yes, before you make your.
Can I say something?
Yes, you're going to say something. Just hold on. I also want to say.
Can I say something?
The fact that you want to tie Ijo or Niger Delta to that topic does not take anything away from the fact that it reflects Africa. But the Africa that you put there makes it too broad. Okay, so you need to limit it. And from the topic, then in the body of the work, you can now expand it a bit. Okay, if anyone who sees the job or Niger Delta knows where that is Africa. Okay, so but when you put Africa or sounds very. You understand? So you need to delimit it. Let's have your comments now. Let's have your comment on some of the things that you raised.
Thank you so much for your comments and all of that. Yes, agreed. So I'm going to remove Africa, and I'm going to add something like let's say climate change, the example of the Ijaw praise poet, the example of the Ijaw praise poet, and they have something like that. Then in terms of theory, this theory, you see, yes, I like using theories, but I've written a lot of papers on African praise poetry, especially the Ijaw praise poetry. And in some, when it is appropriate, I use a theory. For example, I wrote a paper for English in Africa published by Routledge, and I use a theory. In fact, the oral formulate theory by Lord and by Albert Lord. I use that theory, but in some, whether it's a Journal of the African Literature Association, I don't use theories like that. When it is appropriate to use a theory, I use a theory. When it is not appropriate to use a theory, I don't use. And in this theory, I haven't seen, and in this paper, I haven't seen an appropriate theory that I'm going to use. In fact, I haven't seen that. My concern is basically the continuity of a tradition. The continuity of a tradition. How Muna affirms that tradition. That's what I'm concerned. I'm not talking about
Chijoke here. Can I say something, please? Chijoke online. Can I add something?
Where I'm going to use eco-criticism.
Chijoke here. Can I say something, please?
Yes, I want
online,
to allow.
Chijoke.
Yes, Chijoke, I'll allow you and the lady in the audience.
Okay,
so let's take ladies
thank you
first,
very
please.
much.
Chijoke, ladies first, please.
Pardon?
I want that to speak first before you. Thank you.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Sometimes how people with employing theory. So, but because they are bringing in something that deals with climate change in literature, I think I would suggest you take a look at post-colonial eco-criticism. In fact, you have Nigerian eco-criticism. You may want to read scholars like Hegia. In his book that was produced in 2019, is nature aesthetic category. Could be something you could employ for this work. So I think you should bring in a theory that deals with the environment in addition to orality that you're talking about. And it's just a suggestion.
Okay. Chijoke, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think thank you to all the people who are making contributions. And I was going to say that I think this is one of the reasons why we have our conferences, so that we share knowledge and we benefit from one another's expertise, right? I think to some extent I agree with Armstrong, okay? And that means there's another extent that I agree with people on the ground. And what we need to be going for here is a balance. Not everything we write is adding theory to it. Let's tell ourselves the truth. And I'm making this strongly, okay? One of the challenges of Nigerian academic, and I'm talking Nigerian scholars, is always to reach for theory. And sometimes people are reaching for theories in the 60s, they don't even bring it up to date, just so that they will have theory, to be said I have theories. As scholars, we should be engaging our fellow scholars in thinking new ways of discussing issues about Africa, not always theory. Like Armstrong
Theory is a
said, Dr.
Nigerian
Armstrong
thing.
said, if
Theory is a
theory works,
Nigerian
we
thing.
put theory. That is beautiful.
Theory is a
But we
Nigerian
shouldn't be
thing.
fortunate. And that is why a number of papers
something
that is not connected. They finish the chapter, they put it aside, and then they continue. There is no integration,
Yes.
there is no analysis.
Yeah.
And it's because when we come to conferences like this, people emphasize theory. What we do as scholars is to begin to think new ways to engage our contemporaries. If theory works, fine. Theory doesn't work. Let us start feeding ourselves with this theory thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
In fact, theory is a Nigerian thing. Theory is a Nigerian thing. Nigerian academics like theory a lot. They like every time it is theory.
Hello, that's wrong.
Yes, I can hear you.
I've been told that we have 4 minutes left for this panel. So,
Sorry about
Mr.
that.
Adewale Ademuyiwa, the argument is still ongoing about this. We all have our position. None of our position is cast in iron. Okay, Mr. Adewale Ademuyiwa, I don't know if anybody has a comment for him. Yes.
Yeah, I guess probably because the time he used was not that long. I was wondering how he saw the data for the new forms of this praise poetry. Like, where did he get the data from?
Mr. Adewale Ademuyiwa, did you hear that?
Huh?
Yes, so
I can't hear.
the source of your data.
The new one.
The new one.
Data, okay.
And also
Okay, source of
that,
data.
I will not
Of data.
the narrative now. Because it was, if I not told it, there was a reason why it was said to have accommodated both the later and the things. If the narrative has changed now, is it because we now want to ensure we don't have oldies and unless in the matter? Is that why the narrative is changing? We may also want to have educators. Adewale, you have 2 minutes to do that, please.
Okay. The data were gathered from, although I'm still working on the paper as I said, but the data will be gathered from southwestern part of Nigeria.
Where? On the internet, or you read a book, or where? Or you consulted, or you did all research?
From the chanter, from the orators.
Did what?
From the chanter. From the chanters. Apong.
Okay.
Apong. That is primary data. Through the interview. So.
Okay. All right. Did they tell you why they are changing the narrative now?
Huh?
Did they say why they are changing the narrative? Why are they changing the narrative?
I'm not even the one that changing the narrative. The narrative is trying to change itself.
Yes, there must be a source for this change. It could be that somebody just woke up and felt it's my state or it's my tribe. I don't want people to say we are accommodating also, and I change it. And then does that mean it becomes authenticated? Does it become acceptable? I think you should interrogate the charter to find out why it changed.
Yeah,
it is because of civilization.
Yes, you will need to work on that because those are questions that would be asked of you regarding this particular word. I know about post-Programmia. Last year, my presentation here was on post-Programmia. This year, I'm doing for Ibrahim. And I know why some of these things are coming up. I can explain my. You have to justify yours as well. It is very, very important. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Adewale Ademuyiwa, Imomotini Armstrong, Chijioke. I can't pronounce your surname. I'm sorry. And George, and this very beautiful panel. Thank you very much for this. We can go on and on, but we know that there is always a time to finish this. And we can continue with the debate offline and one time. Thank you very much, everyone. The only reason why we have the theory is because the answers you get to every response is because of the questions to put to that text. So if you are open I can decide that I want to analyze and begin to look at different aspects your own way. But if there's a concept that you have considered, that concept can guide your discussion. If I say who is a man, and I tell you a man is somebody who is male, okay, and I can tell you a man is anybody who is human. So it is concept that guides your discussion. So as Africans, what we should begin to do is to decolonize. Decolonize the theory. We have our own theory. Now we can apply. Say that to say we're talking about decolonization for a long time, and that's where I stand to. But to say that no theory, I don't agree with that strong. Thank you very much.
No. Thank you very much. Thank you.